Join me, 48 Hours correspondent Erin Moriarty, on my podcast, My Life of Crime, as I take on true crime investigations like no other. This season, I'm looking into the labyrinth of crime and secrets within families. I'm cutting straight to the evidence and talking to the people directly involved, including investigators and the families of victims. Listen to My Life of Crime with Erin Moriarty wherever you get your podcasts.
Girl, real talk. This whole "it's new year, time to reinvent myself" trash is not the vibe for 2024. You can find someone who loves you for you, as you are. You don't need to read a stack of self-help books, only eat sad salads, or start meditating at 5 a.m. to be ready for dating. So yeah, my advice is to download Bumble and find someone who embraces you the way you are right now. Let me know how it goes.
A note to listeners, the following podcast contains content that may not be suitable for all audiences. Discretion is advised.
I've never seen a body of water like that. And what struck me is if I was making a movie and wanted a place that was going to tell the audience, this is where I think the bad guy threw a body, this is it.
Well, all this case stuff happened when I was probably 8th grader, 9th grader. It's always relevant and always something that was talked about. And never knew I wanted to write a song related to anything down here in southern Oklahoma. I'd say probably 4 years ago, I got the idea to kind of write this outlaw type song about drugs and corruption and, had the perfect story.
You are listening to Partners in True Crime. We are your hosts, Rob and Cindy Dorfman. We want to welcome our listeners back to the podcast. So much has happened since we launched 9 months ago, and we look forward to bringing you more information on the Molly and Colt case in 2023.
We also want to thank all the people who signed up for the Real Investigator tier on our website. The first video is available now if you haven't seen it. We will be adding more video content in a few weeks, along with copies of some of the documents and photos from the case that we have accumulated over the course of the investigation. So check it when you can at partnersintruecrime.com.
To start off the year, we have the amazing Sheryl Mac McCollum on the podcast to discuss her experience with us at the excavation.
Mac brings a wealth of experience and expertise to this case, and we are so glad that she was able to guide our hands during the Moxley Pond search. Hello, how are you, Sheryl?
I'm fantastic. How about y'all?
Good.
How you
Happy
doing,
New
Mac?
Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
You've been a busy bee.
Seriously, with the Idaho thing.
Yeah, that Idaho thing is crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy. Okay, so we're recording right now. So
Okay.
Who we have on the phone today is Sheryl McCollum, who we like to know as Mac. And we had the pleasure of meeting Sheryl through Maureen O'Connell, retired FBI, and she was part of our team that came with us to Oklahoma to look at and explore the idea of maybe that there might be human remains inside that Moxley Pond. And we really appreciate her coming out. And so thank you for doing that, Mac. But I know a lot of the true crime audience out there really know who you are and stuff like that. As far as our audience, would you mind just telling us a little bit about your background? And I mean, I know only a cursory knowledge of it, but I know it goes pretty deep. And if you can just tell us a little bit about what you've done in your career.
Okay. I'll give you the short version.
Okay.
But currently, I'm a crime scene investigator with the Metro Atlanta Police Department. I have worked just about every facet of law enforcement that you can think of. I have been an investigator with juvenile court. I've been a probation officer. I've been a corrections officer. I've done lots of stuff. I was in charge of the crisis response team for the Olympics. I was assigned to the Pentagon during 9/11 crisis response team. And I'm the director of the Cold Case Investigative Research Institute, which is a nonprofit that takes on cold cases to help law enforcement and families with homicides, missing persons, and presumed dead cases.
Amazing. First of all, Mac is amazing. And we were very lucky to have her on this excavation with us. And
I got to tell you, I was lucky. It's so pitiful to say it, but I had such a fantastic time. I mean, it was incredible being with y'all. It, of course, was like fantasy camp, being with Maureen, meeting with the families, and being on that property with Toby. I mean, it was an extraordinary experience, no question.
can you kind of give everyone an idea of what it was like the first day? Because we only had Mac for 24 hours. I just want to kind of get an idea so the audience can understand what you walked into, and was it what you thought it was going to be, and like what your experience was like?
First of all, when I got near the ranch, or I thought I was near, the just openness of this land, you could see forever. There was wildlife everywhere. There were huge entrances to other ranches, and saw all these gates, and all the names were written across the top of the driveways and everything. And a lot of them just had their brand. So, I mean, it looked like something straight out of Yellowstone right now for me. And so when I was getting a little bit closer, Maureen said, look, when you get there about 5 miles out, let us know and we'll start driving to the gate to get you. Well, the first thing that struck me is it's going to take you 5 miles to get to the end of the driveway. So I knew that this was going to be a vast, area. But most of the property that I had passed coming in was farmland, so it was pretty open. I mean, I could see from the roadway up to, the homes and that sort of thing. I could see cattle. I could, kind of tell what was going on. This particular ranch, I couldn't see that from the gate. When y'all met me, led me in toward where I was actually headed, the home, I mean, it was gorgeous. And it looked like a place I would want to stay. Toby comes out, y'all are there. I mean, I just walked into what felt like a family dinner. I mean, everybody was super friendly. Everybody hugged me immediately. Everybody was so welcoming. Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Do you need anything? And then, of course, we all started, just telling stories. And Maureen took lead on that and told some fantastic war stories. And the part that I think I loved the most is everybody kind of realized, hey, it ain't that late. Y'all want to start right now. And I loved that. And I was like, honey, let's load up the trucks, because that's my kind of thing. Why are we going to waste a couple of hours of good hunting? And so we got to go out immediately with the metal detectors and flashlights. And I got a little lay of the land, even though it was pretty dark at this point. So I couldn't really tell where the water was, if that makes sense, because the trees were pretty covering, but easily to traverse. But I think that was one of my favorite things that happened, was just this natural wanting all of us had. We were on the same page immediately.
Yeah, no, we were all ready for the game.
Yeah, no question.
We all came we were ready to jump in there, and because we had been talking about this for a couple months prior and trying to figure out the best time to go that fits with everybody's schedule, because everybody's so busy. I mean, you're busy, Maureen's busy, we're busy. I mean, Toby's a super busy guy, and so we really had to kind of coordinate to make it right. And we figured, ironically, that the only window we had was like literally right after Thanksgiving. But I think it was a great time to do it. I think everybody was ready to kind of dive into this. I mean, we had been at Moxley Pond before, like 4 years earlier, when we did the television show on it. So we knew what we were walking into. But for you and Maureen, coming from Atlanta and Los Angeles and the vastness of that area, and when you realize, and you just explained it eloquently, like when you drive out there, there's nothing out there except ranches. There's no gas stations, there's no supermarkets, there's no fast food places. I mean, you're deep in rural Oklahoma, and all these ranches are just huge, like 3,000, 4,000, 6,000, 7,000 acres. These people have these property that they're not even sure what's on them. Toby even said when he bought the property, he still hasn't gotten through all the 3,000 acres that he's bought, and he's had it for a few years. What was it like when daylight came and we actually got to go down there and you saw Moxley Pond?
I about lost my mind. And the reason is I've never seen a body of water like that. And what struck me is, if I was making a movie and wanted a place that was going to tell the audience, this is where I think the bad guy threw a body, this is it. It looked like a quarry to me. And the water down below, you could see the wall, just this circumference. And it looked like limestone to me. And Maureen and I talked immediately, if we were to have lost our footing and fell in there ain't no getting out on your own. Because if you had tried to climb out, the walls are going to give way. It's too loose. It's not something that is going to have a vine or a tree limb or something where clay or mud where you could even make a footing to get out. And it didn't look incredibly deep. So again, there's a chance you could get severely injured. But as far as the complexity of how do you get somebody to that area to throw them in, immediately I thought they would already have have to be either unconscious, dead, or severely hurt. But once you got them to the edge, there would be nothing they could do to get out of there. Would y'all agree with that?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And you actually saw it when they actually moved some of the earth to kind of cut into
Exactly
the
right.
side of the thing.
Yep.
So you actually saw, when you looked across the pond, you actually saw how deep and how steep the cliff was from
Yes.
the original bowl. For viewers who haven't seen the
Yep.
video yet, it's like a hole. It's like someone just, like a meteor hit that area and just cratered it out. And it's so unusual looking.
And on the opposite side is bamboo,
Yeah.
which is incredibly difficult to remove, much less work your way through. There's another part that's got it looked to me almost like a collapsed bridge or some type of area where a pipe used to be. So you know that there's been some adjusting going on there. But again, there wouldn't be a better spot to me to hide somebody. And it backs up to another lake, and then it's in the middle of these woods that you can't really see through. I mean, if I had been trying to walk that in the dark, I wouldn't have known that place was there.
When we went out the night before, you were very close to that area and we didn't even know it was there.
I had no idea it was there. And that's what I'm saying. If any of us had took off running, we might have lost 2 or 3 people.
Exactly.
Because you come on it and you're done. I mean, it's so fast between those trees. So you can't hear like a waterfall or anything. There's not a clearing like a lake has where the sunlight's going to tell you something's up. There's not tall grass or cattails that would tell you, hey, there's a waterway right here somewhere. There wouldn't be any mud, nothing. There's nothing until you get to that drop off. And so to me, that was just an extraordinary, and I tried to take tons of pictures and I tried to, in my mind, close that gap where Toby had made the roadway for us, the clearing. And I just tried to think to myself, if this whole thing was left like it would have been in 2013, again, that would be a spot I would say we got to check it.
Not to mention, the one thing that I really kind of rang true for me is when we went out there the night before, when it was pitch dark and there was no moon, which was exactly the way it was when Molly and Colt went missing. And the car that was abandoned was not too far away. I'd say probably like maybe a quarter mile away from where that area is. So you really I got a feel for when they were trying to find their way in this darkness with all this terrain. It must have been pretty chaotic, not to mention adding the adrenaline of them being chased by the cops and them having to split up and then Khan just leaving them. He knew where he was going. Colt apparently had a horrible sense of direction, and Molly didn't know where she was either. So it really gave to us the idea of what they really experienced when it's pitch black in the middle of nowhere. You have no reference points. The trees are there. It's all you have is the trees. And if you don't have a flashlight, they didn't have a flashlight. They may have had like their phone to only illuminate their way, but I can't imagine trying to find your way and Colt being, with a broken leg or ankle, whatever he had, and trying to escape.
To me, it would be almost impossible to be able to move too far after getting wherever they were when they were making the 911 calls. And some of the stories that you hear make this case even more baffling. So you hear he fell out of a tree. Then you hear there was something about a freezer. Then you hear they were beheaded. Then you hear there's a clandestine grave. There's all these stories, but if you just go back and say, okay, when did this story start to not make sense? For me, it starts to not make sense when the sheriff calls off the check.
Yeah.
Starts to not make sense when that car wrecked and Khan says, I have no idea where they went. There's no way that's true. There's only 3 people in that car. And if you wreck and then you're all going to go in different directions so you're not caught by law enforcement, they had already stopped following you in the other county. You knew they weren't chasing you anymore. So I don't understand why anybody at that point would run. I certainly don't understand why anybody would climb a tree. There's no need for any of that. I don't understand why they're calling friends saying we need a ride and we need something to drink. Nobody can find them. And I understand not having a good sense of direction. I understand you get in those woods and you get turned around. But you could have given them, I know where we wrecked out because it's right headed toward Khan's house.
Yeah.
So they did have at least a landmark to start with.
I mean, the only logical thing, and I'm giving them the benefit out of calling off the police chase because they didn't want anybody else to get hurt. Maybe that was the motivation. They were more worried about bottoming out the cruisers. That was one of the things. The problem is they knew who it was. Joe Russell knew who it was. Why didn't they go why didn't he just drive up to the house or go there the next day?
Well, wasn't it police chasing them? And wasn't it the sheriff that called it off?
Yes.
Yes. That's where it starts to not make sense.
Yeah.
Because that means he had to have knowledge either from listening, scanning, or having a dual type system radio. That to me, again, doesn't make sense. It should have been the chief of police or their sergeant or their lieutenant, not the sheriff.
Yeah.
And you had these officers saying, but we know who it is.
Yeah.
So again, that's as soon as something doesn't make sense, you should stay right on it. And to me, you can't move from his involvement the very night it happened. And then the next morning, when the family is saying they're missing, he acts like it ain't a big deal. He's not even going to take a missing persons report. It ain't his issue. Wait a minute. You called off the chase. So if nothing else, you should be saying, wait a minute, I involved myself in this, and now we have 2 people missing. I'm going to put every deputy I got on it. But that didn't happen here.
No. It didn't. And from your perspective as a law enforcement person for the career that you've had, an amazing career, what is your take on this and how that was handled?
Well, I mean, I don't think it takes anybody with any kind of career in law enforcement to see home cooking right in front of your face. I mean, you got an uncle that did his nephew a favor. At what degree that favor was done, but I mean, certainly in my personal opinion, that's what it looks like.
Well, he had done it before too, so this was not.
Of course, he had done it before, but whether he understood what was happening that night or not, I don't know. But he certainly knew my nephew's running 120 miles an hour away from police, and he's got people in that car, and now those people are missing. That's an issue, and they should have done everything in their power, including Con, to attempt to find them or answer questions. And again, that didn't happen. Even when Molly's family went to him and said, look, we know she's dead. Just tell us where she's at. Oh, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I know. That's the frustrating part. And I think you nailed it, the point where you're saying that's where everything fell apart. That was
there.
Right there.
Yep.
Because then after that, we don't know anything.
That's it.
It's all speculation at point. Those are the only facts of the case that we actually know.
Correct. So again, when Colt starts making a call, did he break his leg or his ankle in that car wreck? Was there something that happened where somebody might have thought, I'm going to be in some real trouble here if he got hurt? I don't know, but something went terribly wrong for reasons we don't know. And you're talking about 2 people, and every rumor we hear gets worse. Oh, they killed him. Oh, they tied her up. Nope, they shot him. Nope, they beheaded him. Nope, they threw him in.
With hogs.
Yes. I mean, it just gets more and more terrifying and horrifying. And why? You've got 2 people missing, presumed dead. You don't have to make that work. You don't have to bring in hogs. It's bad enough right now.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But the fact somebody's trying to make it worse, and there's all these rumors, and there are all these secondary people now that claim they know something, making 911 calls and not realizing they're being recorded, and telling people different things that they know in town.
Well, that's the biggest problem. That's the biggest problem with cases. It's so diluted now with all these stories and people that were connected to these groups of people, both Molly side, Colt side, Con side, Colby side, all these people that have spoken to either law enforcement or private detectives, and we have recordings that we've aired, and their stories are so fantastic, and it's like, what do you believe anymore? And now it's at the point now, that's why Moxley Lake seemed like a logical place. Especially since you have to grapple onto the facts that you have when Colby's Aaron butt dial
comes from that spot.
And
it's where they hung out. They knew that territory. They knew that land. They could get around there in the dark, and the daylight didn't matter.
I mean, because prior to Toby buying that property, the landowners before him never went out there because they were afraid. All those people had the run of 3,000 acres.
Right. One of the things that I was told while I was out there was their land, of course, backs up to the lake, so you just short boat ride over Toby's property. And they said that it was known that some folks would grow their marijuana on that land, because if anybody ever discovered it, it's not on their property, what do they care?
Exactly.
So people knew. That was a general belief of a ton of people. And one thing I remember Maureen and I were talking that night, this is not a case where you've got 6 degrees of separation.
No, it's one.
Everybody knows everybody. Everybody's related. I mean, even Cole, doesn't he have a child with one of Con's ex-girlfriends?
Yes.
I mean, it's a tight situation with folks. So you've got a lot of layers to these relationships, and you've got a lot of layers with understanding what their culture is, what their beliefs are and how they operate. And it, to me, real clear, which is another reason the very first time we ever talked, I believe tribal police need to take this over.
Yeah.
Well, I think you said that from the get-go. Like when we were sitting there, when we got there, and then remember when the dog guy came, he says, well, who's the who's the law enforcement body that we're going to report this to if we find anything? And we're saying, well, OSBI is working on it. And you were the first one shouting because this is BIA. This is Indian Affairs. That's who I would call. And
Absolutely.
And I think because Molly is part Chickasaw, and we also spoke to a private investigator who
Darcy
Swoon, early on in the podcast, and she recommended the same thing. So, and the good news is that they are now involved.
Yes, absolutely. That's going to be the biggest shift I think you're going to see. And I think it's the best chance that we have if anything is recovered. And, we talked while I was out there, and this is the truth. And I want your listeners to know this without any hesitation. There is no failure in what y'all have attempted and are going to continue to try to do. If we know they're not at A, then we move to B, and then we move to C, and we move to D. That's not a failure to me. That's intel. So if they are not in this pond, and they're not in the next pond, and they're not in the swampy area, and they're not in a clandestine grave next to those cattails, and they're not near where the shirt was found, then we go back and we just have a map. We're just checking it off everywhere we look. And until we find them, I say we keep searching.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is that this case has been lingering on for almost 10 years now, and they didn't do that in the beginning. Like you go to the horrific Idaho murders that just happened a few months ago, and the level of the force multiplier that they had to investigate that case, you can see what happens. It pays off,
Of course.
And they didn't, and in addition, you didn't really know what really happened. They didn't have anything, or at least they weren't telling us anything. But now you can see, and you can back channel and see what they were doing when you put all that expertise and manpower towards solving something. This, they didn't do anything in the beginning. They didn't, and the only person that did anything was Paula, a civilian. And she's.
But here's the great thing. Look what you're doing. I mean, the two of you have put together a team. You and Toby have allowed people to come out. Maureen, with all of her expertise and genius and brilliance, has been out there. And, just to stand next to her, is she not just remarkable?
Oh, Maureen she's incredible.
She makes it look easy.
Yeah, she's incredible. Honestly, Mac, you both are incredible.
And it was interesting to see that the fact to learn that you guys had never worked together on a case before. And the way you guys just kind of gelled immediately. I know you guys had like a friend relationship and you guys have colleagues and stuff like that, but to see how you guys worked and just the way your minds pinged off each other and how you were just rolling scenarios around and stuff like that, it looked like you guys have been working together for like 20 years.
Well, I'm going to tell you, the hardest thing I had to do was leave that afternoon while y'all were still digging. And then when I got the text message that there was possibly a tongue, I could have jumped in that cockpit and turned that plane around myself. I don't want to go because, it's always an unbelievable feeling when you think we're going to find something. But I do want to go back to what I really want to press this point. What y'all are doing is extraordinary. And I have a mantra: every tool on every case, every time, period. There should be no, we're going to use, ground penetrating radar here, but we're not going to use it anywhere else. That doesn't make any sense. Every victim deserves a full court press. But what y'all are doing and what's really important, we talked about it when I was out there: belt buckles, zippers, buttons, soles of shoes. That ain't going anywhere. It's not. There's going to be plenty of things that we can find when we get to the right spot. And that's all there is to it.
We talked about this when you were there. The pond itself was like a bog. And in your experience, finding stuff like that, or even finding remains in that type of environment of the bog, I mean, is it possible that they could find something that was still preserved?
Absolutely. So what happens is that you've got fill. Sometimes when something gets completely covered, like it would have been after all these years, it's going to be a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper every year. You're going to have flooding. So it may not look like that water is moving. That water's moving all the time. So it's got a natural spring that causes from the bottom up some movement. So that is going to be not only gently protected, it's going to be completely covered so that when limbs fall and other things are discarded there like rock, it won't even get scratched. It's going to be right there forever. We just have to get to it. That's why when they started pumping the water out, which again, I wish people could have seen, because it was the most extraordinary thing I'd ever seen in my life, that they had all this equipment where they got it to. And the way that all of those gentlemen were able to work that thing, honey, like a 6-string guitar, he handled that thing. And he got down in there and they got the pumps together and got all the water out. And I thought they got the water out super fast. I was impressed by that. And, of course, we were all watching, but, I was looking for that femur because I felt like if they were thrown from the top, that they would have landed unusual. You're not going to land flat like a cartoon. And, when all the skin and muscle and everything is gone, that femur I thought might possibly be sticking straight up. And then I would, my eyes, y'all were there. Y'all did it with it. I mean, after a while, all the gray and the white and the black and the gray and the white and the black, your mind just plays tricks on you. And I know one time I completely thought that we might have had a finger bone. And it turned out it was a perfectly shaped looking pinky, but it was bamboo.
Yeah.
But at first I was like, we got something, but I was looking for coins, belts, anything that would tell me a human at one time touched it. And of course we couldn't find anything, but it still was the right place to check. It was the right thing to do.
It was just another place that we had that hadn't been checked officially. I mean, Toby tried checking it like a year earlier, but he got to a point where he's like, well, listen, I'm not qualified to really do this. And he kind of stopped, even though he had a team, he had a team of guys out there, but he could.
That's another working with Maureen. When I walked to the edge and I just myself surveyed the way that bottom part looked where the water was, as soon as he started draining it, it completely changed for me. So where I would have searched in the beginning and where I wanted to search once the water was out of my way, we were standing there together and she said, where would you dig? And I said, right there. And she went, my God, that's where I've been staring for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to get down there in that hole right there so bad because again, I think that's where it would have been. And, again, we tried and I think we went considerably deep enough. I think we had the screens and everything was done perfectly. It just wasn't maybe the right place.
Well, the good news is that it's still an area of discussion because now that the BIA has taken over, they're going to go. They're going to go back there, and
they should.
Yeah, they should, as well as some of the other places that we've been tipped off of that also have cadaver dog hits. Like there's a oil well that we had the.
Hey, that's another thing. Those dogs, when the guys got out of that water, you were telling me, and they walked back toward their truck, the dogs hit on those footprints, not just down in the bog. So to me, there's no question. There's been human remains. Those dogs are not wrong, much less 4 of them.
Yeah.
That's not possible.
Over a year period, 2 different times over a year period.
Not possible.
Yeah, I know.
It's just not. And so I think that's critical. And, where we were digging, what if we were just 4 feet off?
Exactly.
What if we were a foot off? It's worth going back.
And we did start finding stuff the next day. We found a zip tie. We found a plastic decoy. We found a beer can. We were able to create some sort of a timeline to kind of see how deep we were. And I still believe they keep digging. They're going to find more. They're going to find somebody. If it's Molly or Colt or somebody else, they're going to find someone down there.
We excavated a crime scene from 1947, and we found a nickel from 1947. I'll take it. I mean, you can't argue with that. Was it from the pocket of one of the perpetrators or one of the victims? Possibly, but, we were able to find shell casings and bullet fragments. So it's absolutely possible. If we can find something after 70-something years, then y'all can find something from 2013. There's no doubt in my mind.
Quick question, though. Before Maureen reached out to you about this and we spoke to you about this case, I don't know if I've ever asked you this. Had you heard about this case before?
No.
When you heard about it, what was your first thought?
I mean, again, my very first thought was home cooking. My very first thought was the people that know critical information wear a bag. First thing I thought. And then again, my other thought was, obviously you stay with Con. He has to have more information. He was the last to see them. The phone calls that they made, I personally would like a little more information if I could speak directly to the people that got those calls, the friends.
Yeah.
I think it's really important because you're talking about from 1 a.m, they make some calls, and then by 10, all the phones are off and there's no trace of them. There's not clothing. There's not a sighting. There's not a blood trail. There's nothing. I mean, that's pretty impossible to believe because, again, if they are not in somehow water, which I find it hard to believe they both fell in the same place and drowned. I mean, unless it was that Moxie, of course, then they should have been right there on top of the land somewhere.
Yeah. I think maybe one of them is in there. I think they were both killed at 2 different times. So I think that's another issue
It could be.
Based upon what was happening and what we've been told and some accounts that we've heard and reports. But none of these reports come from police. All these reports come from people that Paula found or people that reached out to Paula over the 9 years. And she's documented everything. I mean, she's got a bevy of information that we still haven't been able to go through all of it.
But see, we don't have a motive. We don't have how did one person control 2? Where would they have been taken and why? Was somebody called to pick up all 3? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense without some of these large pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah. And that area has a history of just kind of, unfortunately, Joe was there for 16 years and, he had a son who was a meth dealer that was dealing meth out of his house and using his patrol car to transport that stuff. And we also have reports that both Con and at Joe's house cooking meth, that's part of a grand jury testimonies. It just all so rotten. And it's hard to really kind of see the forest through the trees when all the trees are in flames.
And it's also just the reality. The case I was telling you about from 1946, nobody wants to talk. Half the people don't want to talk because it could destroy their family.
Yeah.
The other half don't want to talk because it's going to pull them into some mess where they may become victims. So you're talking about some people that probably have information, but it wouldn't do them any favors to come forward.
Yeah.
Because they still live there. They have to live there. Their homes, some of them, I know for a fact, generational. They've lived there 6 and 7 and 8 generations. They're not going anywhere. So they don't want to bring trouble to their front door. I get that.
And what do you do when you don't trust the local law enforcement? You're not going to go them to with information because, number one, you're not sure if it's actually going to get heard. And number two, you're not sure if it's going to put you in jeopardy.
Exactly. And y'all have even experienced that.
Mm-hmm.
Where Obi gave somebody in law enforcement the bloody shirt. It's gone. He called another person. Nope. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable to me. It's a twisted web. There ain't no question about it.
I know.
Yeah, it's been rough.
Based upon all your experience as far as what to do next, if the BIA called you and asked you, I mean, with all your experience, like where would you go next and what would you be telling them just continue to search the areas that are in question?
No. If they called me and asked me, I would say they need to review every file that they can, but then they need to start at ground zero. Start where the car crashed. Go look at it. Walk it. Understand where that car spun out and wrecked. Who would have gone in what direction? And then they need to re-interview every single person that's willing to talk to them. Try to really pressure the ones that don't want to talk to them, and then start to paint their own picture. Because I think it's going to be real clear real quick who was involved. And then at that point, they need to say, okay, most likely from where that car spun out, if he broke his ankle there, how far could he have legitimately gone?
Girl, real talk. This whole it's new year, time to reinvent myself trash is not the vibe for 2024. You can find someone who loves you for you, as you are. You don't need to read a stack of self-help books, only eat sad salads, or start meditating at 5 a.m. to be ready for dating. So yeah, my advice is to download Bumble and find someone who embraces you the way you are right now. Let me know how it goes.
Inspired by the life of the savvy and ambitious Colombian businesswoman Griselda Blanco comes a new Netflix original limited series. Griselda tells the story of a devoted mother who, with her lethal blend of charm and relentless savagery, creates one of the most powerful cartels in history. Witness Sofia Vergara's captivating transformation into the godmother of the underworld. Griselda, streaming January 25th, only on Netflix.
Yeah.
Then work your way out at that point of where you need to serve. And then the other thing that I would tell them, these main people that keep having all these, butt dials and conversations and acting like they know something, eventually one of them is going to need to make a deal. Because these people are not going to stay out of trouble. And the other thing that's going to happen is relationships change. So some of these folks that are married now won't be in 3 or 4 years. And sometimes those exes have phenomenal information. So I would pay attention to those two things. Who gets arrested and who gets divorced?
Good advice.
It is good advice. And actually, we gotten some tips from people like that. who've left the area. We've gotten some scary
Yep.
tips where people call us and they're basically crying on the phone saying, I should have said something earlier, but I was afraid something was going to happen to me or my family. But now they don't live there anymore, and they hear the podcast and they realize that's the other thing too, what that whole area wasn't aware of. They knew about the Molly and Colt story. They didn't know the level of craziness in the story and how it was not handled properly. So they didn't know any of that. They had just a cursory knowledge. That's the one thing that everybody's kept on telling us. We had no idea what really happened and what Paula was going through, because they would just they would see her pop up on the news on a year anniversary. The local news station would do it, and it would be the same thing. I'm not, this is what it is. This is what happened. This is what happened. The basic facts in the case, and then nothing else. So those people are coming out, and which is helpful. And I hope that they continue to come out. And I think, based upon preliminary of what I've heard about how BAI is going to handle this, they're going to do exactly what you just said. They're going to go back to the ground zero, and they're going to go back and they're going to re-interview everybody, and they're going to go back and talk to everybody. They're going to, hopefully, we'll have a conversation with them just to kind of, because we're here to be helpful to them. Because if we get any information, we're gonna hand it straight over to them. Because people will, since the podcast, people has been reaching out to us and telling us stuff because they feel safe. They know that we're not gonna reveal who they are, but at least we can kind of steer them in the way and let law enforcement say, hey, listen, this is what we heard. Maybe you want to go check out this person. Because there's so many names. I mean, that we have a board in our office with so many index cards, so many names that have come up in this. And I would say probably about 90% of them all have records. They all have some, and some of them have done better for themselves now. They've been in and out of prison. They've gotten themselves clean. They've found religion, all that kind of stuff. And then others just got worse.
Yep.
So.
Well, every now and then we'll have somebody come forward and they're like, you're not going to believe me because, y'all have arrested me or whatever. Come forward, no matter. Because if we hear the same name over and over and over in the same story, in the same quote, I mean, that's a money tree all day.
Yeah. What's your perspective? Because the one thing that came up a lot when we were talking to people, and especially law enforcement, and how they wouldn't trust anybody who had a drug problem. Well, you can't believe them. They're a doper. Whatever they said is just, they're high and they're a doper. I grew up in the New York area, so did Cindy, and we have a lot of friends who are detectives, homicide detectives there. And we've always asked them, I go, don't you take information from anyone who's going to give it to you?
Yeah.
Regardless of their circumstances?
Well, a lot of people, that's who they make their CI. And the second thing is, Johan Vandersloot, for example, smoked a lot of weed and he confessed to killing Nally Holloway more than one time. I believe him. Absolutely, I believe him. So, you get your information where you get it from. If you can validate it and you can, again, find somebody that'll tell you the same story, well, then you start to get some traction. So to me, when you get that information, regardless of who it comes from, see if you can make it stick. I mean, you're investigating. Investigate.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that's been the key here. Investigate. Yeah. Do something.
But again, it's like any case. The first time you heard that Bill Cosby assaulted somebody, you're like, come on. Bill Cosby. I mean, everybody loves him. Well, then you've got 7 women. Then you've got 19. Then you've got, after a while, you can't deny what you're hearing because they're telling the same story. They're telling the same MO. Well, then things start to change for you. So again, you may have somebody with a drug problem give you information, but let me tell you about that drug problem person. They're not always high. Sometimes they're completely sober.
Yeah.
But where they are connected to other people that are streetwise, that have their ear to the ground, that understand what's going on in that county. Like I tell people all the time, you want to really know your county, go to the jail. You might be shocked. You might be stunned. How many people are here for drug charges? How many people are here for drinking and driving? Okay, now let's get into the burglary and armed robberies and rape and murders and aggravated assaults. I thought drunk driving was the worst thing we had because that's what you hear about. You don't always hear about the other stuff. I've had people tell me where they live, they don't have a gang problem. Well, according to your jail, you do.
Right.
You just don't see it because where you live. So if you live up on the hill in the Purdy house and you go to work in your home office, you may not know what's happening at the underbelly, but I promise you, your jail knows it.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. Like, we just have this new app on Facebook for our neighborhood that's connected to all the law enforcement in the area, and they post like anything that's happening. the codes and everything like that.
Way too much is happening that I don't want to know about.
Exactly. I'm like, wow, that's like 2 blocks from us. We
Don't
live
really
in a
need to
really
know.
nice area.
Don't want to know.
You're
I
clueless.
feel like for me, sometime if we have an incident, then I will go around the surrounding houses that have Ring cameras and ask them, would you mind accessing that and see if you can see anything? So I may knock on your door one day because something happened right across the street or down the road that I'm looking for a car or somebody running or whatever, but I'm going to probably let you know. So again, you start researching some of these things, it'll blow your mind. One of the things I used to do when I taught college, I would make them look up sex offenders in their area. Well, most people didn't think they had any. You do. I promise you do.
Way more than you think.
Oh, yeah. I moved into a new neighborhood and I literally did it. And literally it was 3 houses down from, we're talking like a nice neighborhood. And granted, the guy was like later stage in his life. He's like in his 70s. But I was shocked that it was so close. We have kids in the neighborhood and stuff like that, but they have to post it. And it was pretty, you look at the map and you see all the dots on the map of where all these people are living.
And let me just leave you with one little wonderful thing to think about. Viagra has changed perpetrators. So where they used to age out, they don't have to anymore. So that 70-year-old down the street, still be a little cautious.
Yeah. That's crazy.
So gross. Quick question though before we go. Since Molly and Colt's case you'd never heard of because it really wasn't in the media 9 years ago, compared to the Idaho murders, which we've been seeing on every single news broadcast, why do you want, in your nonprofit where you're working with families and victims' families and trying to solve cold cases, why do you think some cases get more media than others?
That's the $1 million question. I don't know a formula for it, but I can tell you what stalled it in Molly and Colt's case. A lot of times, press conferences, law enforcement reaching out to the media saying, hey, we need your help here. Law enforcement reaching out to say, hey, Lamar, can you donate a billboard? Nancy Grace, will you put this on Crime Stories? That didn't happen here from that level. And probably the family members, they don't know how to contact the media. Most people don't know how to get a story out. And so what you find is if sometimes you miss that first rung of that ladder, it's hard to get that story to, catch some legs and get people's attention. But again, that is why I'm such a fan of podcasts. I'm such a fan of, anybody can be part of the media that wants to now. And y'all are doing a fantastic job because not only have y'all put this story out in front of God and country, you've involved other people like Toby and Maureen and myself that have a way to contact some other folk. I mean, Toby's Rolodex, I'm jealous of. So
He's amazing, yeah.
He's amazing. And he can get some people on the phone, y'all, that are game changers. Well, so can Maureen O'Connell. So, that's important. All of these steps are important, and y'all have done that. So,
and getting back, and the way we found out about this story, Mac, is an obscure Daily Beast article on the internet. That's how we found it. A 3-page article.
Yeah.
That's how buried this thing has been.
Got it. Understood.
So it's like, and when you look at it, as far as sensationalism, as far as what TV news wants for ratings or anything like that, you have a corrupt sheriff, dealing meth out of his car. You have his cousin is the driver of the getaway car where the 2 people go missing. You have a vast series of corruption that's going on in this small southeastern town in Oklahoma. I mean, it to me, I always describe it, it's like a cross between Ozarks and Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
And the fact,
absolutely.
And so,
I mean, even the headline of that article was Meth, Strippers, and the Sheriff.
Exactly.
And it still didn't hit mainstream media.
That's the greatest title I've heard in a long time.
Oh, yeah, it was crazy.
That stopped me dead in my tracks.
Crazy.
Well, you are awesome, Mac. Thank you so much for coming out to Oklahoma with us. And I hope we get to do some more stuff together because we really enjoyed hanging out with you.
And we need to get you and Maureen together.
Absolutely. You guys are
a dynamic
awesome.
duo.
Dynamic duo.
Anytime.
It's like the new Cagney and Lacey.
Anytime, honestly. And you could even call it the new, younger, sexier Cagney and Lacey.
There you go.
Exactly. The hot version.
Well, hey, listen, you just tell us a little bit about your podcast you just launched, because I just been seeing. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's called Zone 7, and what that basically means is, your core group, your ride or die folks, the people that have your back, that you can trust to keep your secrets, to watch your back, to tell you the truth. So, you don't work sometimes these cases openly. Sometimes you keep things real close to your vest, but if you need to bounce something off of somebody, that's the people I'm talking about. So I have Maureen O'Connell. If I call her and I say, look, I know I'm missing something. I have a gut feeling. I know I'm close. I just don't know how to get it over this next barrier. If she takes a look at it and goes, well, have you thought about veterinary records? Oh my God. I never thought about a vet. Never crossed my mind. Thanks so much. Love you. Bye. So it's that kind of person. And she's not going to go on the internet and say, I can't believe Mac didn't think of this. She's not going to, make me feel stupid. She's not going to do any of that. She's going to say, hey, if you need me, call me back. And I have that with so many people. Just Scott Morgan, Karen Smith, Nancy Grace, a ton of people. And people in the general public don't even, I think, understand how much myself that I rely on my Zone 7. And it's something that has benefited me throughout my entire career. No question about it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's
That's
awesome.
it's kind of like, I like that term, Zone 7, because that's what we did. We needed help. We called Maureen. Lenny DePaul is a friend of ours. I've called him numerous times on this case, and Lenny's fantastic.
He's a fantastic human being.
Oh, he's great. He's great.
Oh my God.
I was doing a show for A&E, Crime 360, and we had a fugitive felon killer who left the state of Indiana. And I called A&E and I says, "Can I talk to Lenny?" I says, "I need to find someone." And and he actually found the person the guy had killed, went from Indiana all the way to San Diego and was working under an assumed name as an orderly. And Lenny found him in probably about 24 hours, then called me back. He goes, "Well, you want me to pick him up?" And I go, "No, let me get a camera crew there first, and you can pick him up." He was awesome. He just found him like in 24 hours.
Yeah, he's so great. He is just lovely. And, he's so caring and so supportive of family members. It's a joy to watch him work, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
But again, that's what I'm talking about. So the way the term came about is Atlanta has 6 police zones. So you consider your Zone 7 just that, home button, so to speak.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And then where can people listen to this?
Anywhere, iHeart, Apple, Spotify, anywhere they normally listen to podcasts.
Fantastic.
And it's awesome, by the way. So I want everybody out there to check it out because it was fantastic.
Well, it's legitimately how I work. So I run the story in my head, and then I bring in who I think I need to hear from to push this case forward. So you're just getting a little bit of an insight. This is how I do it. There's no magic. There ain't no crystal ball.
All that life experience.
A little bit.
No, I can see it because when I was watching you and Maureen work, I could see how you guys are just clicking off. You're kind of eliminating things very quickly, and just checking off the boxes. And you're like, oh, well, can do this. It was fun to watch. It was very interesting.
Well, and that's why I say, I know this is most likely a murder of 2 people, especially really young people.
I know.
And that's just pathetic. So I don't want to say, oh, I just had so much fun. But you have to, the only way you can work and not burn out is you have to put it where it needs to be. So for me, this was fun. And it was, something that I will look forward to doing again, especially with y'all and Maureen O'Connell. But I know, I was there. I saw the tears. I was there to comfort and advocate. But I was also there, hey, let's put these screens together and move this, pump over here. And this is just going to become a river in about 2 minutes. And it could possibly generate, evidence. So to me, that was exciting. It's both at the same time. Mm-hmm. But again, it was an experience that I can't thank y'all enough for. And I appreciate it and just wish I could have stayed longer. And I wish I could have done more.
No.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate you, Mac.
Yes, absolutely.
And thanks for coming on today.
Absolutely. Y'all call me anytime.
Absolutely. And we'll keep you up to date on what's going on.
Our next guest is a young singer-songwriter named Trent Fletcher. Trent went to the same school as Molly Miller, but is a few years younger than her. He remembers the story of her disappearance vividly, so much so that he felt the need to write a song about it.
Songwriters for years have been inspired by tragic events to investigate the human condition. Neil Young's Ohio, about the Kent State Massacre. U2's Sunday Bloody Sunday is about the troubles in Northern Ireland. And even Nirvana's Polly, which is about a suspect in the Green River Killer case.
A song about the Molly and Colt case has been brewing within Trent for years, but it wasn't until he started to listen to the podcast that he felt the need to finally finish it.
We're going to play the song now for everyone to hear, and then we'll talk with Trent.
It's a really great song from a talented young man from Oklahoma that we really think you'll enjoy.
down by the river. Law's got me working real hard, selling shakes and handing out quivers underneath the Oklahoma star. Down here the river stays red and these blues can't stay in blue. Ain't no love, no hill bent hand, no. They don't care about me or you. And that's just the way it is, and it probably won't ever change. Got the law running, things spreading poison every day. Rattlesnake shaking up, better pray you don't get bit. Oh, the law ain't worth a damn, and the river's running red. Quite a shame down in the hollow. Blood money's just too damn good. Never know when you won't see tomorrow. Never know when you won't leave the woods. They say it's just another cold case, but the river's still singing a sad song. Not a word has ever left this place. Warrants unserved, it just carries on. Oh, that's just the way it is, and it probably won't ever change. Got the law running things, spreading poison every day. Rattlesnake shaking up, better pray you don't get bit. Oh, the law ain't worth a damn, and the river's running red. Oh, that's just the way it is, it ain't ever gonna change. Got the law running things, spreading poison every day. Rattlesnake shaking up, better pray you don't get bit. Oh, the law ain't worth a damn, and the river's running red. The river's running red.
Hey, Cindy, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Trent?
Oh, I'm doing well today, doing well.
Good. I have my husband and partner in crime, Rob, on the phone.
Partner in true crime. Hey, Trent, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, doing well. How are you today?
Good.
Good. So we were really excited to hear your song. We've been hearing about you for a while. A couple of people out there in Oklahoma. When we heard your song, we were just like blown away completely. And we just wanted to talk to you about where you got the inspiration for the song and a little bit about your background and how you got into music.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Trent.
Okay. I started playing guitar when I was 11 years old. I'm from Fox here in Carter County, and just kind of always grew up playing music and being around it. A lot of my family played, and I've got a big family from around here, and it was just always something that was in my life. Never really knew it was something I wanted to do as a career or take seriously until college. I mean, I wrote a little bit in high school and played quite a bit, but never really took it that serious. Like I said, got pretty serious with it in college, and I've been hitting it pretty hard for the last 6 or 7 years. Well, all this case stuff happened when I was probably an 8th grader, 9th grader. It's always relevant and always something that was talked about, and never knew I wanted to write a song related to anything down here in southern Oklahoma. I'd say probably 4 years ago I got the idea to kind of write this outlaw type song about drugs and corruption, and had the perfect story relatable to it here in southern Oklahoma, Love County, and I knew that would be a really good idea for a song, and just never really could figure out the best way to tie it all together and talk about it. But I knew it was a story that would kind of capture people's attention. Just really wanted it to be an outlaw ballad about law enforcement, drugs, and corruption and stuff. And I've rewritten that song so many times over the last 3 or 4 years and just never could get it how I wanted it. The song's been just kind of sitting there up until the last few months. Actually, your guys' podcast kind of motivated me and inspired me to get it done. And I had this idea. I was like, there's 2 examples of the case, and then later the corruption, the drugs, and everything. I mean, it all goes hand in hand, and it's all tied together. Like, I could find a way to just tie the song together that way instead of just writing it about just the law enforcement deal. I could find a way to tie the case to it as well and give some examples and reference that a little bit. And so I spoke with Misty, and I kind of gave her my idea on it. I was like, this is what I want to do with the song. I just want to make sure, I've got it straight and everybody's okay with it. I've got good intentions, and at the very least, if the song does anything worth listening to, or if it does very good, that's just that much more attention that can be brought to this case. And that was just kind of my logic behind it and my thought process, and it came out the way it came out, and I'm super proud of how the song came together. And it's not too detailed and too specific. It's enough to kind of stir somebody's imagination and get them thinking and questioning things. And I don't know how many people so far that have just asked me about the song that I've been able to either point towards the Facebook page or point towards your guys' podcast. And it's just been a really cool experience just seeing it kind of come to fruition and just see people's interest peak about it that otherwise never would have had any clue about what's going on down here in this area. Yeah, and it's still in the early stages, and so it's just been pretty cool to kind of see it all come together how I envisioned it and just see what it brings.
Well, I mean, like most artists, tragedy inspires art. And I think that's what you did here. You took a tragic situation, which, like you said, you've known about since 8th grade, and you turned it into something that is worthwhile and also creating a message for people to kind of keep the drumbeat alive on this case until it's solved. So that's kudos to you, and I think that's pretty amazing. So question for you. When you said you remember this case from when you were in 8th grade, tell us what it was like as a young teenager to hear something like this happen in an area that you're living in, and tell us what it was like through the eyes of an 8th grader, because I guess were you like around 13, 14 during that age?
Yeah, 12 or 13, something like that. That I remember that time specifically being right at the beginning of social media being a big thing. It's kind of about the time Instagram came out, Snapchat came out, but it wasn't widely used yet. So it was kind of the last bit of an era where you could still live a life day to day without just having information constantly put in your face. I mean, it still was, and it's what led to where we are today with the spread of information, which could be a great thing. But at that time, there was still a lot of information transferred by word of mouth. And obviously word of mouth, you can't get a lot of things right, and it seems to distort information more so than it was if you could just, see it instantly on your phone right now. And specifically, that's what I remember, as an 8th grader, 9th grader, you've got a ton of distractions, a ton of stuff going on in your daily life. There's a lot of small towns down here, a lot of small schools, and a lot of talk. we played sports against all the schools down here, from Turner to Wilson to Hilton and everywhere in between. And so we obviously had a lot of friends in different towns and different areas. And instead of just something being posted in your face, you'd hear about it at different times at ball games or something. And it was always one of those conversations that got brought up constantly, especially then and even throughout high school. And I mean, to this day still, but it was just always in the background, always kind of a conversation that got brought up if there was anything new going on, if there's any new stories or theories, or I don't know. It's hard to even think of a stretch of time where that wasn't something somebody talked about at some point. It's been that way since then. I don't really think it's ever really went away or died off. I mean, it's just kind of constantly been that way. And what I've realized as a songwriter and a musician, I take a lot of pride in what I do, and I know what affects me emotionally when it comes to music. You don't want to just listen to BS that is just background noise. You want something to connect to and relate to, and something that kind of strikes a chord with you. And whenever I went about the song, I was like, how can I put this in the best light possible to just kind of give somebody that wouldn't have heard about it for the last 10 years some perspective? What's the best way I could put it to capture somebody's attention and make it sound appealing to the ear, and it's not just telling a story. And so it's kind of a lot of that considered all in one, and it's just trying to tie in 10 years of hearing about something and conversations held about it and the stories and the rumors into 5 minutes is an impossible task. I don't know. It's just been one of those deals that's been around for so long. You don't really remember a time without the conversation about it.
Wow. It's amazing that you were able to absorb all that at such a young age. And then now it's been how long since you were in 8th grade? 10 years? 12 years?
It's been right at 10 years.
Yeah. I mean, that's a long time. And then to hear something like this where it's very moving, the song is very moving, it's very emotional. Did you listen to the podcast at all?
Yeah, I haven't listened as much lately, but that's kind of what got me to finish the songs. I really got into it a few months ago. I was like, dang, like this is something that's still so relevant. Like now is the time I'm in the mind space now, like listen to this every day. Like this is the time to get this done and finish it, because everybody else is thinking about it right now too. And, everything kind of working collectively together. I feel like it's just a good time for people to connect to the song emotionally too. And it's just kind of how it came out.
Yeah. Were you surprised to hear some of the things in the podcast?
Most of it I didn't know, honestly. I mean, there's so many things that you guys talked about. I'm like, dang, I didn't know that. And, kind of heard that and heard a different version of it some way or another. And, there's just so much information, and it's hard to even retain it all. Yeah, you guys have done a great job by spreading this around and giving it the light and opportunity to reach the public too as well. And so kudos to you guys. But yeah, I mean, your podcast has definitely played a huge part in kind of fired me up to finish the song that I've been working on for years, and it did the job.
Oh, good.
That's good. That's good.
Awesome.
We'd love to motivate anybody who wants to bring attention to this case and use whatever tools that they have. We have documentary skills and storytelling skills that we use, and you're using your skills as a songwriter to tell a story that kind of really embeds the whole story into it in a nice package where you can actually create some emotion with it as well. And so, because this case has been trying at times, and I think for the family and for law enforcement and for the community, and the fact that you can find a little bit of hope through a song to kind of illustrate what has transpired, to kind of keep that message going is pretty powerful. Because as we know, songs are things that stick in our heads and stick in our emotions, and they really kind of create a narrative for everybody. And so we appreciate you doing that. And we're happy that we kind of helped motivate you. Yeah. I mean, that's great. That's fantastic.
That's awesome. We love
that.
Well,
definitely. I'm really glad that it's been received the way it has, and that you guys enjoyed it as much as you have. Because I definitely struggled with how much detail and emotion do you put into this type of song. You don't want to offend anybody. You don't want to step on any toes of any of the family or anything. And it was a battle for months trying to figure out, like, where do you even start with how deep you go on it. And I've had to do this with a couple songs on different topics. And what I decided to do is just, instead of just going to so much detail like I always tend to do, I rolled it back just to where it's enough where if you know, like if you know what it's about in general, then you know the details in your head. But if you've never heard it, or you don't have any experience with the case or with Love County or Carter County or any of it, and you hear the song, you're obviously, your mind is pointed in a direction, and it forces you to question things and forces you to wonder what it's about. And so I feel like it was a good balance of knowing and not knowing at the same time. Just the right amount of detail is kind of what I was trying to go for with it.
Well, you did a great job, because that's...
Well, I sure appreciate it. That means a lot.
What's the next step for you?
The next step is we're just kind of taking it easy the rest of the year. We're in the studio this week. We're going to hammer out a couple more songs this week, get ready to start pushing some more material next week. And I've made myself stoop to the levels of TikTok and trying to get my music out on there, and been pushing that on there, and it's been doing pretty well. And just going to keep figuring out new ways to market the song and push it and promote it, and hopefully it can get in front of some new listeners' ears, and I can point them in your guys' direction to the podcast. And we're hitting the road pretty hard in January 2023. We've got a lot of shows booked already for the first 3 or 4 months, and it's just a good time for us right now. And I appreciate you guys having me on and enjoying the song.
Yeah, so where are you booking tours? Is it just in Oklahoma, or are you going to be going outside Oklahoma?
Up to this point, we've played all around Oklahoma up to this point, and right now we've only got 2 shows booked in Oklahoma for next year. We're in Texas, all over Texas for the first few months. We're getting up to Nebraska, maybe some Iowa shows. We've got some stuff in Arkansas booked, some stuff in Colorado we're working on right now. So we're really starting to kind of get out of the state and make some noise, and it's pretty hopeful to finally get out of the Oklahoma circuit and definitely get into Texas more. That's been a struggle for us, as we get down there and it's so hard. There's so many bands, there's so much noise going on that it's hard to get anybody to take you serious or give you a chance. And we're finally getting some calls up, so it's working out right now.
Fantastic. Well,
Okay, good to know.
good to know.
What's your handle on TikTok?
My handle on TikTok, let me double check. I think it's just at Trent Fletcher Band.
Okay, because we'll do a duet and see if that helps too.
Perfect. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Trent, stay in touch. Let us know where you're going to be, what's happening.
Yeah, and let us know, send us email us or text us where you're playing and stuff like that, and we'll put it up on our website and on our Facebook page.
Heck yeah, I appreciate that a ton. I've got a link tree that's got all my links already added to it, and it's got my website on there, and I keep my website updated pretty regularly with our tour dates that we add as we get them, and so those will be on there, and I'll just send you that link tree if you want, and that way you have everything all in one.
That would be great.
That would be great.
Well, listen, keep on writing songs, my friend.
Will do. Again, thank you guys for having me on. I'm tickled to death you guys enjoyed the song, and hopefully it'll send some people your way and send some people to the Facebook page, and at the end of the day, say if the song goes crazy, that's that many more people that can hear about it. And I love this place. I love Southern Oklahoma, and that's just kind of, I feel like that's what I needed to do just for my love of the place we all live in. And
the more people that hear it, the more people that know about it, the more traction we get, the more things will change for the better.
Definitely. I agree.
Next time on Partners in True Crime.
Our investigation into the case of Molly Miller and Colt Haynes continues. We're going to be sorting through tips, and we are going to be speaking to new experts in law enforcement and the legal field from around the country, who will hopefully help us unravel this mystery.
If you or anyone you know is suffering from a methamphetamine addiction, please contact the American Meth Addiction Hotline.
If you or anyone you know has been the victim of sexual abuse, please contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline.
For any tips relating to the disappearance of Molly Miller and Colt Haynes, please contact 833-4MOLLY and Colt, and they will be directed to the proper law enforcement agency.
All rights reserved. This has been a production of 722 Media Content. Please visit our website where you can subscribe to the podcast, find show notes, and listen to Vi's original song, Take Me Back, written for Molly Miller.